subscribe to the channel. What is important beyond just subscribing also is getting that notification, clicking the notification icon, because the advantage of that is even if you forget about a class or you get carried away or something, um, the moment the class starts, the moment you go live, you get that notification on your device telling you, hey, this YouTube is live. Then you probably now want to check it at that point. Subscribe to the channel. Okay, so all right, so that's working fine. And let's start recording now. Okay, so many of you who have been attending this session, you're not hearing me for the first time, but if this is your first class that you'll be interacting with me, that I'll be presenting, let me know in the chat window. So I can probably start. Is there anybody here that this is your first time? Your first time, okay, because I know I've only taken one of the sessions, and this is our sixth session already. So of all the classes, I think, like we said, every class would have 2 sessions each. So this is the last of the first sessions. I hope I'm making sense that way. Since we're having 6 tracks, and we'll have first part of all the different tracks and product design. Then from next week, we'll be having the second part of all the stuff we've been doing from last week. So today we're looking at product design. Okay, someone says it's his first time. So quick introduction. My name is Dare Oduale, and functionally speaking, in the place of work, I've done a lot. I've worked across different roles and responsibilities, from business analysis to project management to managing product delivery, and the rest, coaching agile teams, being a scrum master, and all that. So predominantly, I've worked extensively on IT solutions, either enterprise solutions for an organization or delivering marketable products, either B2B or B2C. And in all of this, I've worked more predominantly on the business side. Like I've mentioned, most of the roles I've handled. And so today, I'll be talking about product design and what it pretty much means. And some people will believe that, okay, I think I know what it means. You probably realize that what you've probably been told before, that is product design, is maybe just 10% or 20% of what product design really is. So that's what I will be doing here today. So I'm doing this with my organization called Crestrad. We've organized this whole training session for you guys. So, and Crestrad as an organization itself is a company that has evolved over time. We started Crestrad by pretty much doing training, and evolved to doing work around design, business design, service design, learning design as well. So it's pretty much about how do we solve wicked problems. I'm more interested in wicked problems. And if you do some good search around things on design thinking, you get to know what wicked problems are talking about. These are problems that you don't have just one solution concerning it. So you have to like we had a short session during the service design class, and some people were like, oh, really? So many times when we think we are solving a problem, we're just solving the symptom. So that's the thing that I've been interested in. So far this year, we've worked on some projects. We've done some collaboration with an insurance company. We've worked with a tech startup foundation to design solutions for these guys. We've worked on designing a fintech service as well. So by designing the service, it cuts across looking around the product itself and the service wrapping around the exact product. So the total experience of that. So these are some of the projects that I've worked on and still working on this year as well. So the topic of today, which is product design. So my name is Dario Oduale, and I've introduced myself. I love my name, so I get to say it a lot sometimes. Okay, so this is just an introductory class, and we'll be talking first on that first part of product design that sometimes designers don't even say as your responsibilities, or that some designers don't even think about. All the so many work that happen before you even start doing any actual visual or information design, so to say. So let's shoot. These are the things to be covering today. And in terms of the objective, like someone answered earlier, that we're looking to learn what product design is. and what it takes to be a good product design. So we're talking about what are the required skills, talking about techniques and tools, so that you need to learn to be able to be a product designer, and also discuss around maybe soft skills as well, so that is essential for this. So what exactly is product design? What is product design? Product design is the process of identifying a market opportunity. So you see, the interesting thing is that the product design does not even start with the product. So if you anytime you start with the product, you've probably missed the mark, because we don't know what the product is going to be yet. We just need to identify that there is a space here and we want to play in it. So we understand what the opportunity is. We go ahead to like, what's the problem within this opportunity that we want to really solve? Like the guys in the internship are working on something around data, and recognize that opportunity. Then you need to find out, okay, what exactly are the problem here before you get to the point of say, oh, now we want to deliver a solution to meet that problem. So a lot of time people start thinking about solution without understanding what the problem is. We'll be looking at design thinking, which tells you things like start from empathy before you get to even defining the problem. So before you define problem for me, you have to know me. So you cannot define my problem without knowing me. So you can't define your user's problem without knowing your users. So yeah, this is and this is by no means exhaustive, so to say, because if you Google what is product design, you probably see different definition. But I love this very much, and I saw this was a sponsored article by Adobe sponsored this article on Smashing Magazine, and I pretty much love this definition. So in some of the slides, you see some of this kind of things here that looks like a clickable thing. Well, this is my slide here, so it's not clicking you out of the slide at the moment, but those links will take you to what's it called? Perhaps maybe when you get, if you get the PDF or something of the slide, I might be able to work the actual article or something that is for further reading for anything that I reference here. So that is product design, and we'll still go on because it's not just about the definition, it's about what exactly it is. It's beyond just the definition. So we'll go around talking about things around it as well too as we go on. So now, who is a product designer? So the thing is, a lot of time, product design, the most related role to product design is UX design. And sometimes some organizations just feel, okay, we used to call it UX design. Now people are calling it product design. Let's also call it product design. It's not just about a change of name. The same way someone cannot just say, oh, I used to be a project manager. Now the Scrum methodology of Agile is now in vogue, so I'm just going to become a Scrum master. You can't just change the name. There is even though you can probably switch that hat, like you can learn this and become it and all that, but there are some different nuances here and there between those two roles. And you have related roles, but the nomenclature should tell you where it's focused. And even UX design itself has its own unending conversation, because sometimes some people put UX design within the scope, within the element of just understanding the experience and relaying the information. But some people see UX design as everything that covers around designing the product itself. But let's agree with the guys who believe that UX designers are involved in designing everything about the product, from the understanding the problem to designing the prototype and testing it. Yeah, let's agree with that. Even in that context, the product designer is still slightly different. So the product designer is pretty much very related to. So I will stop. Let me share something else quickly. I want to demonstrate something. Whiteboard. Oh, my pen. I have this. Okay. So to just understand a bit around this, products, the things relating to a product. What's happening here? So these are like three elements of a product. So you've got, let me just type that. You've got design, you've got development, and you've got delivery. Yeah. this is what products pretty much entails. So the products, when you have a product manager, so to say, the product manager sits here. Uh, the product manager sits here, right? The product designer is looking at all of this. But you can see that there is that overlap of working together. So it's not just working in isolation. So it's like before now, you would have design as a face, development as a face, then delivery as a face, as stage by stage. This is like a waterfall approach to delivering projects and things like that. But it doesn't work like that for a product because the product is ever evolving. So what you have now is more like design, develop, delivery, and it's a continuous cycle. And what happens there is that you design a part of the solution, development, fix it, work on that, delivery, but everybody is working collaboratively and continuous in cycles. So designing a little bit, somebody else is developing, somebody is delivering, and we're all working collaboratively together. And in terms of delivery, to make it clear, in delivery there we're talking about, by delivery there we're talking about marketing. Yeah, so you have like the product designers, you have the developers who, in this context, so to be clear, in the context of this class, we're addressing product design as digital products, yeah, mobile apps, websites, digital products, software, things like that. Yeah. So in terms of development, you're now talking about the software development guys and other part of the development team. Anyway, you have the testers part of that. You have the QA guys, which are pretty much what testing has evolved into. So it's not just about waiting to test at the end, but quality assurance through the whole thing, automated testing and the likes. The cybersecurity guys, everybody working together in development. And marketing are like, okay, how do we get this down to the users? So we've got a class on growth marketing. So that is where you begin to sometimes wonder that, okay, it looks like you are talking about the same thing. You said growth, the person working on growth marketing will do personas. You're saying the product designers will do personas. What's happening here? Who is doing what? So there is this continuous overlap as well too in the matter of work. And so that is that. Let's come back to any questions so far. Let me get back to. Okay. I think there's a question in the charts. Where's the chart again? Could that also be market needs? Oh, I think this question must have happened a bit earlier, so I would like to get a bit more context there. But was that when I was talking around problems and opportunities and needs and the rest? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yes. So by saying market needs, you what your needs are is that you have a problem and you need a solution for it, or you have a situation, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be like a problem, because there are some things that you probably wouldn't have recognized. So for you not recognizing it yet, then it's not a problem to you, as but it's still a need. Like if you get it, it's going to make life easier and better. Oh, fantastic. So like I mean, there's a popular saying that customers, they don't know what they want until you show it to them. So, and that's one of the reasons why you sometimes do prototyping as one of your work as a designer, which we'll get to as we move on anyway. So yeah, market needs, you're talking about the problems that you've seen that you need to solve, but sometimes the problems have not been recognized yet, but you just found out opportunity that, oh, if I do this, I think it will actually make people's life better. Nobody has realized that they need it, but by the time I launch it, they would embrace it. Okay, so however, one predominant difference between a product designer and the UX designer is that even when you have a generalist UX designer that can cover everything, which we'll be looking at on the next slide, what a bit of a difference to the product designer is that the product designers are much more involved in the product roadmap, so to say. And by product roadmap, we're talking about when we deliver what, because the product designer is baked into that process of making sure that this product gets the best return on investment and things like that. And some people, there are different school of thought. Some people say that the UX designer is only focused about the user, whereas the product designer is thinking about the user and the business. But that's not so true, because as the UX designer, even though you're thinking about improving the user experience, if you go ahead and suggest something that is not going to help the business that is not sustainable for the business, that means you are not even thinking about your users to start with. Yeah, it's like someone who says, "Oh, I'm going to let's say enroll. I love my child. I'm going to enroll my child in this school," and you don't think is the fees sustainable? Can you actually pay? But that's what is best for the child. But the child can end up going, and now if you're unable to pay the fees, you might think you've done what is best, but at the end of the day, the child is not even going to any school. He's not going to the one that is paid. He's not going to one that is not paid. He's now at home waiting for you to raise money. So you've actually not even done what is best to that child. So if that analogy in any way explains what I'm trying to say, that a UX designer cannot even do their work well without actually thinking about what is good for the business as well. So they need to balance it out. Because if you just think user and it's not good for the business, they're going to pull the plug one day. And that means you've actually not done what is best for your users. So, well, some of the difference that I kind of like agree with is that the product designer is more involved with the product roadmap side of things. And sometimes, depending on the size of the product, when you have a team of designers, when it's not just the one man or two man running the design, you could have specialization within your design team. And the product designer, being end to end kind of thing, might be the guy who is uh, facilitating the whole working together, the team of the designers. And another thing as well too is the usage of it. Sometimes the usage of UX designers come with a lot of companies that are project focused. Yeah, project focus. We just want to deliver this new product for this company to use. Maybe it's a market product. I want to bring it on board or things like that. Or we just want to develop a particular solution for our clients, maybe as a design agency. So we're not owning that product. We're just helping them design all that experience anyway. But in a situation where it's a product-centered company like the Google and Amazon and Twitter and Facebook and the rest like that. These are product focused Salesforce in that kind of context. And that's where you see the role product designers sometimes being more in use as well too. So Paystack in Nigeria and the rest. So you see product designers because that's a product focused company. So you're working continuously through the lifetime of the product. You're always thinking how to make this product better, but a UX designer might be project focused. But I mean, depending on the preference of the company, they can decide to rename as they want, because all this, some of all these roles and all that are pretty much still evolving. So I've also put some links here that you could, for further reading. UXdesign.cc has a lot of good content on all of this, and interactiondesign.org has a lot of materials around design. They have a blog, they have courses on their sites, they have materials that you can download, they have webinars you can subscribe for and all that. It's a very, very good resource on interaction design. So let's move on to now get a bit more clarity to talk about what are all those different functions or responsibilities or multiple hats that a product designer might wear. The UX designer also wear a number of all these hats as well, too, by the way. So let's look at those different hats now. Okay, yeah. So you can see the list is endless, because a lot goes into getting the product. It's just like the product manager thinking about everything. He needs to know a little about everything. And like product managers are being called, like, quote unquote, the CEO for the product. And that's why you have some organizations that the person leading the product is sometimes like a breeding ground for the next CEO, so to say. I think that happened with LinkedIn. I think the former CEO I think he was leading product when he became the CEO. And when he also handed over to the recent CEO was the one leading product as well, too, because you think everything concerning that product, especially when it's a product-focused company. You have multiple products that you're supervising and all that, and everything that goes into it, from design to delivery, to making sure that it's properly priced, to make sure that, I mean, everything. So now, what separates, a good question, what separates the product designers from the product manager? Okay, so the product designer, like you see that there are three elements there. So you have the design, the development, and the delivery. So the product designer is pretty much more focused around the design stream of work, which will be talking about all the things that goes into design. I mean, this part of this slide, this left-hand side, talks about a lot of all the things that goes into the design, yeah, of the products. And whereas the product manager needs to know a little about design, needs to know a little about development, needs to know a little about delivery. So you're speaking with marketing guys, speaking with the software guys, speaking with the design guy. Of course, everybody collaborates together, but the product manager is the one that is pretty much supervising it all, you know. So So yeah, that's one. I know that's probably not the best differentiation for it, but that just simply clarify a little bit. Anyway, so and sometimes in a team where, depending on the size of the product, sometimes you will your product team, especially in a situation where your product team is not just 10 people. So if your product team is just 10 people, then you can have a product manager and all those 10 people are reporting, not necessarily reporting, but the product manager is supervising or facilitating the conversation across all the 10 people. But if you have a product team where you have like 50, 100, 120 people, for instance, you are likely going to have like, okay, these are the design guys, and this is the person leading all the design efforts. So you probably have one product designer leading that, one product like the lead for the software development team. Then you can have like a lead for marketing and all that. Then you now still have, because what is happening today in the world of work is the grid organization. You more than likely going to belong to two teams when you are in an organization. So I need to use the what's it called again? My whiteboard. You can see the whiteboard, all right? Yeah. Can you? Because I don't know which one is sharing right now. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. So, hey, something here. This whiteboard is not working. I'm gonna. Okay. What was I even trying to explain earlier? Okay, the grid organization. So you have something like this. Let me share it. Yeah. So you have something like this where you have, Spotify has given this nomenclature that a lot of organizations are catching up with these days. So you have something called the tribe. You have something called the tribe. So tribe, it could be designers, for instance. Then tribe of designers, tribe of engineers. Then you can have the marketing guys as well to tribe. And you also know that as the organization, depending on how large the product is, there will be a bit more specialization across everybody. So even within the engineering team, you have the guys focused on front end, the guys focused on back end, some guys focused on creating the architecture runway. You have the software architect part of it. So you have this different, maybe tribes, so to say, as well, to even within the engineering track. So, but just to make it easy, I'm just going to focus on design engineering, which is development, and delivery, which is marketing. So you belong to all this tribe, but you don't just work in that way, because what happens is you deliver in Agile, there's a terminology say you deliver in slices. So if you're going to build, if you're going to build an e-commerce site, for instance, you will have a team that is probably focused on payment. You have a team that is probably focused on product catalog. You have another team focused on maybe account. So different function or features, so to say, of that solution, different team is managing them. So you now have a cross-functional team now. Yeah. Which, according to the Spotify terminology, they call this team squads. Yeah. So this team is like the payments team. This one is like, let's say, order processing. This one focuses on product catalog. There's another team again that focuses on, let's say, for instance, Amazon has this thing called subscriptions. There might be a team that manages subscriptions within that. And however way you can divide that product up, and everything is integrated together into one. There is a way of working, one of the agile methodologies, agile frameworks called Scaled Agile Framework. You can take note of that. Scaled Agile Framework, SAFe, explains a lot how this works when you have like different teams, like different agile teams working together in something called an agile train, which is now you have like what's the word? A solution train and the rest. So don't let me leave this class and start teaching Scaled Agile Framework. Let's come back to product design. So this, to an extent, explain that fact. So your designer is probably working at this level, but each of these functional elements could have product managers. There's a product manager here, there's a product manager here, there's a product manager here. Then there would then be like one overall product manager. and some organizations call it product line managers. Yeah, or depending on how the hierarchy, that person could be called head of product or director of product or VP of product, or as it goes like that, as the hierarchy keeps going. But you have this team that they can deliver things on their own. The product manager covers all of this, whereas the product designer is working at one of these elements. Although knows what area that person is working on because they all work collaboratively together. And sometimes, because that's what is demanded in the world of work today, they start even stretching beyond their own level and start learning some other things. So you start seeing product designers learning things like front end development as well. So it's not supposed to be a requirement, but because you'll be working more closely with the front end development guys, you you want to be able to have some background knowledge of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and things like that. But it's not compulsory. It's not compulsory, so to say. So let's come back to the slide now. Yeah, so these are some of the different roles that all these roles could be rolled into one person, and it could depend, like I said, depend on the size of the product and size. Oh, sorry, let me get back to my slide. So all those roles here could be rolled into one person, and they could have different people performing these different functions. You have the UX research or user research. So this is the point where these are the person focused in interviews and surveys and observation, really speaking to the users to understand the users. Sometimes it's not about understanding what they want first. It's about understanding them. It's about knowing who they are, how they live their life, how they do their things, and all that. So before you even start saying, okay, having understood these people like this, how does these people really need what we want and things like that? We'll talk about some of all those processes as we go on. So you have all those interviews, start extracting things like the personas and empathy maps and all that. Some of all those things come out from the UX research. And whereas some people think that this is a conversation that probably just happened maybe at the beginning where you want to launch that product, in some cases it's continuous because you want to keep learning about your users, what has changed. For instance, if you have a particular product that you deliver, let's say e-commerce. I like the e-commerce example a lot because it's something that we are almost everybody's familiar with anyway. So an e-commerce site, for instance, you could have done your user research and all that before you launched it. But now during this pandemic, with countries like the UK having a lot of lockdown and the rest, there have been some changes in user behavior and how we want things to be and things like that. So you might as well do a bit of more of this research as well to understanding your users and all that. But it becomes a bit easier. Well, don't let me say easier because there is still a lot of information you need to extract and things like that. You need to, because as you expand your product, you add more features and things like that. You want to find out how will people use this, how will they respond to this, do they even need this? And so sometimes it's a continuous process. So don't think of it as stage by stage. And the UX researcher will finish and then we'll pass on to the UX designer or things like that. So UX design, in some situation, they just focus on the person who take information from the researchers and present it in some visual representation, like maybe just stopping at the level of maybe wireframes and sitemaps and things like that. But in some cases, they expect the UX designers to get involved in UI design and visual design and interaction design and everything in between. So you have that companies, some places they call it UI, UX, some places they call it just UX, and they want you to cover everything. So you have to like read through the job description really to be able to know it. And there are some roles that are just focused on UX research. And the UX research person, they don't expect you to actually know how to use some of those design tools that we'll be looking at later. They just expect you to like be able to conduct the interviews because guys, conducting interviews is an expertise, man. It's not just talking. It's not just like talking to people. Being able to ask the right questions, which of course all your questions should be open-ended to say, so that you can get the most information from people. And that's why when you're doing your user research, questionnaires are not just questionnaires are not they are not uh, I wanted to say they're not the best tool to use, but sometimes they could help you gather some information. If you are using it alone, I don't think it's the best tool to use because there is limits to what somebody can say to you in a questionnaire. But when you're sitting down face to face, talking to them, either it's over video calls or real face to face, you're able to listen to them, you're able to observe them as they are talking to you as well too. You're able to get some more insight about them. Maybe in the course of the conversation, the person got on the call, oh, my child, oh, I'm sorry, we have to cut this interview short and all that. It gives you a deeper insight about that person, what you wouldn't have gotten from just a survey or something like that. So you're like, okay, this, so it helps you capture more information about the person and, things like that. So it's a lot of work to do it. And we find sometimes people who are experienced with psychology research, who understand brain, the human mind, and things like that, being able to swerve into roles like UX research. So it's a good one. UX, I mean, they're all everything on the screen. They're all good roles. So UX design, focus, like I said, it varies. UI design, in its case, user interface design. That's what it means. These are the guys who sometimes are just focus on converting wireframes to mockups. We'll look at mockups later on as we go, which are just like looking like graphics design, so to say. And then you have the visual design guys who are like, I mean, sorry, the visual design guys are like that. The UI design guys as well. So, like I said, a bit of difference in nomenclature here, guys, and many of these are used interchangeably in some contexts. Then you have interaction design, which involves that, okay, now it's not like a prototype, it's movable, you can touch and feel, you can click whatever this person has designed or something. So these are the guys who probably get to there are different tools for those different layers of work. But a lot of time, you need to be able to, you might have an expertise in one particular area, but you need to be able to like touch on most of them. There is motion design, there's copywriting. Also, there is information architecture as well too, which is like the person who, how does all the different information that will be presenting on this side, how do they all fit together, working around sitemaps and the like. But so rather than these things being seen as roles, it's better to see them more as functions. So how many of it are you able to cover? How many of it are you able to do? A lot of time, the product designer might not necessarily need to do every of this because you might have a team of expertise in the different area, but you need to know about all of it. But it's best to know, you can form your expertise in one particular area, but it's important to have some understanding in all the different areas. So another part here is this other things here, which influences the work of the product designer as well too. So this person could have worked in these different roles before to move into product design, and they could move from product design into any of those roles as well. So, or they require these skills to be able to perform their function. Data analysis, I'm going to pick on that very importantly because in product design, you're not just thinking about user research, you're also thinking about your market research. Yeah, so you need to be able to analyze that data that you gather from the market and things like that. So product marketing, business analysis, and the rest. So let's move on from here. There's a lot to cover today. Okay. Now let's talk about some of the approaches that govern how a product designer goes about their work. Human-centered design. So the idea of the human-centered design is just trying to make us understand that your design should be focused on humans. And now there are other terminologies like user-centered design, and you have some design experts and all that who says, hey, using the terminology user-centered means that you are seeing human beings first as users, but no, you should see them first as humans. So that means it flips it on its head in a way that, because when you say user, that means you are relating them within the context of a particular solution. But when you say humans, you mean as they are. I want to understand them. Who are they? How do they live their life? And things like that. Then I see how does my product fit into their life, and they can work with the product as well. So anyway, the human-centered design is just this approach that believes that whatever the solution we are designing needs to be more focused on humans. And the human-centered design, should I dare say the mindset and approach of things, it's something that cuts across things just even beyond product design. It cuts across service design, it cuts across what other design are we out there? Business design, learning design, instructional design, any sort of thing that you're trying to design at all. Even if you are, what's the design when you're working with hardwares and all that, industrial design. Even if you're doing that, because at the end of the day, whatever solution you're creating is for human beings. Like, even if your solution is to improve the diet of dogs, human beings are the ones buying it. Human beings are the ones making the decision. So you need to understand those human beings, because if you make a very good dog food, for instance, now, and that dogs enjoy and is good for their health. But if that dog food is going to be staining my carpet as the owner of the dog, I'm probably not going to buy it from you. So you need to still think about the human being's needs, even when you're creating a product for their pets, so to say. So at the end of the day, humans are always the focus, whatever kind of solution you are delivering or designing at all. So, and whatever human-centered design approach you're working with, the focus is always around inspiration, ideation, and implementation. Sometimes a lot of people jump to this level of implementation because they just assemble a team and say, what we are trying to create is this particular project. And the question is, how do you even know that this project or this product is relevant? How do you know that it's even needed? Because people just jump to conclusion and say, hey, like we did when we were in the service design class last week, people, hey, we have a high rate of out of school children in Africa. So what do we do? Oh, we're going to build more schools, and then you just jump to implementation. Who says more schools is going to be the solution? So you don't jump to implementation. You start from inspiration, and inspiration is about really immersing yourself in the lives of the people. Immersing yourself in the lives of the people. You need to know these people. Not even thinking about your solution yet, not even thinking about the problem yet, just trying to focus on the people. Because it's in the process of focus on the people that you're now able to draw some inspiration of, oh, we think this is probably the problem that is more common. Because at the end of the day, you realize that different geographic region has different problems. So you might be able to now draw some insight across board and say, okay, this is the most common problem. And like we also said during the service design class, understanding the symptom is different from the problem. So you see a symptom, you need to dig deep as well. And one of the ways you do that is the 5 whys. Why is this? Why is this? Why is this? And sometimes you can ask this question even to the people. So why are you not going to school? Yeah, you're not going to school because our dad says he does not have money to pay. So why does your dad not have money to pay? Oh yeah, because he lost his job. But what happened? Why did he lose his job? Oh, the company, they've actually downsizing, or exchange rate has affected them, things like that. Oh, so why was that result? Oh, because they got loan from in dollars, and now that the exchange rate in naira is terrible, they can't pay back, and it's making the company shut down and all. And you now realize that it has led you to something absolutely different. So imagine speaking to 100 people, and everything comes related to exchange rate. Then you now realize that, oh, so we won't solve the issue of going to school. Our focus should be to build a solution that would help people, I don't know, around managing exchange rate or things like that. Maybe creating more naira denominated loans for people, so that way you don't have a number of companies shutting down, so you don't have people who cannot send their children to school again or things like that. So that's just like a wild example. I'm not saying that's a true case anyway. So let's move on. Ideation tells itself. By the time you've extracted all these insights, you're able to now come and say, okay, let's ideate now. So what are the different ideas we can work with? Then we test those ideas, then we move on to actually implementing a solution. So one of the human-centered design approaches that we look at today, which is most common, is design thinking. Any questions so far? I want to make sure that I'm not just talking to myself. On the chart window, so I can see it's not coming up. Okay, seeing it now. Isn't UI and visual design the same? Okay, so very similar. Very similar. Like I say that those things are not, a number of these things are nomenclature. Even in some contexts, you hear that interaction design and motion design is the same thing as well too. So, but the time when people want to like I said, depend on users, depending from one use case to another. So in some context, they can say that a visual design are focused on designing a lot of marketing materials and things like that, or that design that even goes out on our social media and things like that, beyond just how the website itself is going to look. So that's one way that it could be differentiated at times. But the visual designer could very well work as a UI designer, and sometimes the UI designer is expected, like for instance, if the visual designer is doing more of graphic design work outside the look and feel of the website itself, because I mean, you know that when you have a product, the only design you do is not just the product itself. You have a lot of marketing materials, things going out on your blog, things going out in your newsletter, things going out on prints and things like that. The visual designer could get involved in all of those, whereas the UI designer is just pretty much focused on the websites, the mobile app, how it's going to look and feel. But like I said, they could cross the line because it's pretty much very, very similar skills between the two. Another difference is that the UI designer might be expected to know a bit more around the front-end development, not actually writing the code, but knowing about it. So when you're doing your design, you can think about some of this. And interestingly, that's why we have some tools now that is catching on with the UI and UX design guys. It's called Webflow, And with Webflow, you can do your design, drag and drop boxes and lines, and you can extract code. You can extract the code from that. Okay, so talking about design thinking. So design thinking, even design thinking itself, as a term developed by uh, the founders of IDEO, and it's caught on pretty well, and it's very effective. It's something that cuts across any type of design that you're doing. So designing any form of solution at all, be it business, service, products, what have you. Um, it's a way of always starting from that point of empathizing with people, and then before you get to the point of defining the problem, and then once you've defined the problem, you can ideate, then you can create prototype, then you can test your prototype. Whatever feedback you get, it can lead you back to speaking with the people as well. So, and understanding the people, a whole lot can go into that. Observing, interviewing, questioning, reviewing how they do things, even reading reports about some things, understanding some things about psychology. There's a book that is called, I think, 100 Things Every Designer Should Know About People, for instance, talking around how people think, their mindset. So you need to be able to understand people within the context of whatever solution you're trying to come up with before you get to the point of now actually defining what the problem with those guys is. But like, as you can see, it's an infinity loop. It continues like that, continues like that. And there's some other approaches where they're telling you that at this side of the design thinking, what you're focused on is to diverge. Then at this side is what you do is to converge. So what that simply means is that don't just start from one single point. There is no true answer to it. And there's you have to, in whatever kind of design you're doing, you have to have the designer's mindset. And the designer's mindset is focused on the fact that you believe that you don't know. You don't just assume. You always seek to know. You always seek to confirm. You always seek to validate. So at this point, you just gather every information as much as you can gather at the point of empathizing and trying to define the problem. Then when you get to the point of defining an exact problem, then you can now focus on that and zoom into it and flesh out the ideas. So there is an approach from Google Ventures called the design sprint. And the design sprint says that you can actually run through designing a solution in 1 week. So you go from the Monday, which pretty much mirrors a bit of the design thinking flow as well. So Monday, you're trying to understand the people, talking about the people, maybe talking to people or whatever ideas you have and all that. Then on Tuesday, you come up with different suggestion of what you think the problem is. Then at the end, you decide on maybe one or two or three that you think this is the exact problem we want to focus on solving. Then on Wednesday, you come out with ideas for the solution. That what are the different solutions we can do to solve these three problems? You come out with so many ideas. Then at the end of the day, you streamline the team and say, okay, let's work with this particular idea to start with. Then on Thursday, you create a quick prototype in 1 day of that solution, whatever that prototype is. That prototype could just be a form. That prototype could just be a social media page. That prototype can just be drawn on paper or something. And then on Friday, you go out there to test it with real users. Speak to them, they try to interact with your solution and things like that. And then you get feedback from there. Then if you think they actually need it, then you go ahead, pass it on as something that you want to go ahead to develop. But if you think, well, the feedback is negative, you go back to your drawing board again and say, is there any other ideas we suggested on Wednesday that we can pick up with? Or want to start again to understand the people, the approach continuously like that. So but one thing to always just put in mind is that it's a continuous process. We don't finish this and finish this. No, we continue learning about people. We continue verifying that are we solving the right problem? Is this still a problem? Because something might be a problem 5 years ago and it's no longer a problem today. So there's always that continuous, is this still a problem? Is this still a problem? Then you always looking for fresh ideas to innovate. If you have this mindset, if you have this approach to delivering work and all that, it helps you to continuously innovate. Even if you try to practice this even in your own personal life as well. So, what are we trying to work towards? What's your career goal? Let's start with empathy. Let's try to understand other people. Maybe speaking to people who have gotten jobs, those who have not gotten jobs, how did you do it, and all those things like that. Then you come to defining what exactly is your problem here. Why have you not gotten one? Then you now come up with different ideas. So if these are the problems, you can come up with 10 different problems, but you need to narrow it down to a few. Then you come up with ideas. What can I do to solve this problem? Oh, okay, I don't have enough visibility on social media. I'll be posting XYZ amount of articles. You come up with those ideas, and then you can't work on all the ideas at once. You pick the ones you can come up with, And then you prototype, just start something. If your desire is that I want to create a blog, before you go ahead and create the blog, your prototype can be a LinkedIn article. So for instance, yeah, you try that and see if it works. How do people relate with it and things like that? Oh, this is nice. Okay, maybe I should create a blog, or maybe I should even continue with writing LinkedIn articles or something like that. And then you see, you check, is this result, is it getting better? Are you getting more offers? Are you getting exposed to more opportunities? If that is not working, you come back to your drawing board. What else can I do again? So this is an approach that you can even use to solve problems even for yourself. But one thing to be very clear of, is that when solving problems, uh, uh, um, actually when you're solving, so now we've given that example that you're trying to solve a problem for yourself. But if you're thinking to create a solution that will be sold, so if you're thinking to create a solution that other people are going to use, don't deceive yourself saying, well, since I'm also having the same experience, I can use my own experience to make this decision. So I'm also a user. No, you are not a user. You are producing the solution because you will be narrowed into your own perspective alone. You might be surprised that what you call the issues is not the issues for other people. So it's always important to get out there and speak to the users, empathize with your users. So yeah, so the question is, what's the difference between a UI and UX designer and the front-end designer? So yes, so sometimes you're expected to know about React.js, not because they want you to be the one writing the code. And they spell it out sometimes. We don't expect you to write the code, but we just need you to understand it. So by the time you're speaking with the front-end designers, you can both be speaking the same language. So you are not designing something, you're not designing things and saying this should move like this should move like this, that it's not able to be delivered. And that's why sometimes you have a lot of trouble between designers and developers, like when you don't understand how it's going to work and things like that. So in some cases, they just want you to understand it. They don't want you to actually write the code. But in some cases, depending on the size of the organization, I mean, imagine an engineering team where there's just 5 of them, from back end to the guys thinking of the cloud hosting. Everybody is thinking of everything within 5 people. And they bring you as a UI UX designer. They want you to actually be able to write that code. So even though it might not be your primary responsibility, since we're all collaborating as a cross-functional team, when it's required, because sometimes some designers finish designing, they've passed it on, and they don't have so much to do. But if you're actually doing your design work, there will always be a lot of stuff to do anyway. But it happens in some situation, and that's why they expect, okay, in such situation, you can also switch your hat, drop the hat of design, and start writing the code as well. So in some cases, they want you to actually write it, when sometimes maybe to be able to fill in for the front-end designer. In some cases, they just want you to know about it. And that's why I made an example like web flow, for instance. So it might be like an easy way into it, because that one just helps you drag and drop the stuff, and then your code, you can look through the code. Some people don't know how to write the code from scratch, but they can look through the code and know that, okay, this is where I change color, this is where I change dimension, this is where I change this, and things like that. So that's it. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's move on. So now the product design process. And this is us just trying to stretch out the design thinking process anyway, and try to use a bit of some terminology related to product and how you can work around this and all that. So where it always needs to start from is your product design. Your product design, your product strategy is where this always needs to start from. So why is it starting from product vision? Is that if you just assemble a team and say, oh, we're trying to solve a problem for graduates. You just know that you're trying to solve a problem for graduates. There are so many problems you can solve for graduates. Like, which location of graduates are we talking about? Because if you start talking about graduates in the US, they might tell you that, oh, the biggest problem for graduates is their student loan. You get, if you're talking about Africa, for instance, they might say, the biggest problem is getting a job, or the biggest problem is even getting the right skills to get the job. So you see now that if you don't clarify, now you've not, what we say product vision, you are not defining the product. You're not telling us exactly what the product is. You're just trying to tell us what this, you think you would like to have a product that would achieve this. So not the product itself now, but what it's going to achieve. Yeah, why you need to develop that. So you're not focused on the what, you're just focused on the why. That's what you're talking about at the point of the product vision. So that is what gives some guidance to the guys who now go out and do start with the product research. So the terminology product research here is, what is more common is UX research, user research, and all that. But the terminology product research try to expand it a little bit. That the research you need to do is not just about your users. You need to do research with your users. You also need to do some market research. What's market research? First, much more commonly is understanding the competitiveness. So this thing you're trying to achieve, is there any other product out there that is already achieving this well? So you need to compare all the different products out there, or all the ones that you can find. And in doing a competitive research, the first thing is to identify what are the other solutions that are similar to what we are thinking about. Remember, we don't know what the solution is yet, but what are the solutions that are similar to this solution? Yeah. So we list them out, create a list of them, and as long as you want to do, as long as you can handle. But of course, it's important to keep it. It's better to have a few and go deep than have 100 and you don't have enough information on all of them. So you do user research, you do market research. These are things that form together into your market research. And sometimes your market research is not just about comparing competitiveness, it's about crunching data and running data and trying to create a model to say, is this going to work? Are people going to buy this? And things like that. Because you hear startups pitch their solution and they say there are 200 million, the population of Nigeria is 200 million. So if we can get 10% of that, that's 20 million users. No, that is a wrong estimation. Whatever solution you are giving should not just be based on the total population of a country, because whatever solution that is, I don't think there is any solution, yeah, that is usable by all the people in Nigeria, for instance. I don't think there's any solution like that. If there is any, maybe tell me. Perhaps oxygen, and it's already available and everybody's already using it. We're already inhaling oxygen. We don't need you to create it. So if it's so universal to everybody, then it must be existing already. So that way you need to find some model to be able to say, okay, what are the statistical information that informs the size? You want to develop a solution for students, you need to go and do some research. Go and collect data on what is the population of students in, I think we have, I don't know how many universities in Nigeria, but I know there are over 100. So you need to have a list of all your universities. What is all the students in all those universities? If your product is related to students within a particular course, for instance, then you go to the level of all the universities, all the students, to all the students doing this particular course of study. That's now what your total available market is within that particular focus. So these are all the people that are likely going to use this solution. So designing the solution for software engineering graduates in Nigeria. So that's the number you need to do. Then you need to be able to estimate, okay, what is like the number of people that has graduated in the last 10 years and how is that number going? You might be able to do some data analysis, some data science work to predict and say, we'll be having X amount of graduates in this particular field in Nigeria continuously for the next 5 or 10 years. But I mean, that might be too much of data to run through because and you can have a simplified approach to just, but you need to be able to. So what I'm just trying to explain in the product research, market research part of it is that it can take different form or shape. You can be doing a competitive analysis. You can be running a lot of data to understand your market. And user research is so much speaking to people. It's not just reading about people online, speaking to people. And one of the things you can also do, even understanding your people as well, so observing them. And observing can go beyond physical observation, depending on the solution you are creating. You can observe people even from their tweets as well too. You can look for people that form within that demography and just try to follow what the tweets, what they talk about, and things like that. It gives you some insights as well too. So user research can take, but the predominant part of user research is you have to talk to people. Any other thing you've done, if you've not spoken to people, you've not done user research, guys. So the user analysis. Now you've gathered the data from the user research because you're going to get a lot of information. Some of those interviews, you record them, audio recording, and all that. And sometimes you do more detail, like even taking pictures while you're doing all of that during your observation. And then you come back, you put those pictures on your board, you put the notes, you have recording, you have all this so much information you've gathered from your user research. User analysis is now trying to make sense of all of this, trying to synthesize all what you've gathered and extract insights from this before you get to the point of ideating about your product. Now we've gotten this insight to realize that graduates in Nigeria within this age group to this age group are much more interested in XYZ. And then we now have to realize that Like I'm using that example that says that if you're trying to solve something for fresh graduates in Nigeria or in Africa, by the time you do your user research, you may realize that what these people are looking for is not skills. What they are looking for is not training. What they are looking for is how to get out of the country and go to their masters somewhere else. Then you realize, okay, that is the real problem, not what you might have thought before, or jobs or skills or something. But the problem is people want to leave the country. So you now have to think, how can I solve it if that's the real problem? But then if you realize that, oh, this is not one area you want to play, or it takes you absolutely away from your product's vision, then you can go back and try to see and say, okay, what we're assuming or what we're thinking as well, is it also a tangible need? If it's not a crucial need, then there's no point. Or if you can tie it together and say, well, even though what most people are trying to get is to leave the country, but what you've realized from the people you've spoken to is that to be able to leave, they need to get a good job so that they can save enough money to now leave and go to their master's. So and then you can now come back to solving for people getting jobs. Yeah. All right, so that's just an example around ideation. It has to come from the insights you've gotten about the people before you ideate. And when ideating, don't try to think crazy. Yeah, try to come up with crazy stuff, because sometimes the most stupid idea from the room is what somebody else is going to build on, and it's going to eventually become the greatest idea. Somebody, nobody's going to use that. That's no, that's too extreme or something. But then somebody says, oh no, but that actually makes me think that we can do blah, blah, blah. For instance, I encountered a product, a fintech product that I think the company is based in the UK, but they are helping people in Nigeria to get loans. Now, if somebody had, when they were ideating for that solution, when somebody had suggested that before, they would have said, this is rubbish. If you want to help Nigerians get loans, then go back to Nigeria. But it would have sounded a bit stupid. But when I saw it, it was lovely, because what have they done with that product is to say they partnered with what's it called now? They partnered with microfinance banks in Nigeria who provide the loan. So what this company in the UK now do is to be able to get the loan in Nigeria, you need to have a relative who lives, or a friend or somebody who lives in the UK who can be a guarantor for you, because that loan is what's it called now? Collateral free. And because you don't have that level of robust data in Nigeria to be able to track somebody if they default on their loan, although that is getting better now with the BVN. So they now created that solution in such a way that here in the UK, someone can agree to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to be the guarantor, provide their own detail, and the person in Nigeria gets the loan, and the person in the UK have to put some amount of money, maybe 5% or 10% or something, as a down payment. So that small amount of money is serving as the collateral, so to say. So that's just an example of a solution that when somebody was coming up with that idea, you could have looked, it doesn't work. What about regulatory challenges and things like that? But those guys are able to pull it off. So when ideating, don't constrict your mind to what you think you can do alone. Think wide, and that's why ideation exercise is not just something we just discuss within 5 minutes and say, yes, that's it. Sometimes it takes a whole day, and you gather the whole thing at the end of the day. You come back the next day and you felt, oh, I just got an epiphany. I think that particular stuff, or I stumbled on this research. And that's why when we talk about design thinking, it's a continuous process. Even at the point of doing your ideation, by the time you come up with one particular solution that you've from the idea, you want to go back and look at your product vision. You want to go back to look at your research as well. So you might find something else in your research that you missed before. And say, oh, no, this idea is good, but we found out that people mentioned that this is solution similar to this has come out before, but they didn't do it maybe because of XYZ, it's too expensive. And we realized that if we're going to develop that solution as well, it's also going to be expensive, things like that. It could make you now continue thinking again and say, okay, no, that doesn't mean we should throw this out. It just means we should think, how can we make this work and make it cheaper? Things like that. So it's a continuous loop. So yeah, then you have the design. So the problem is sometimes when people say product design, what they are just thinking and focused about is this design side of it. They just want somebody else to give them all the information, and they just come in, they just sit down and design wireframes and mock-ups and prototypes and the rest. And that's all they know. They don't even know how to speak to people. That's not design. I mean, anybody else can wake up now and just learn those tools very quickly and start working with it. But it's that robust experience. And I know some organizations still do this, where they just get in and they say, we want the solution. And people just start drawing ideas from blank. Or they go to site. There's a site called Behance, Behance, where like You can go in there and just see. I think it's if my description is right, it's more or less like an Instagram for designers, so to say. So where people can put out their work, what they've done, and things like that. So sometimes we'll just go there and look at what other people are doing, and they just draw inspiration and they start designing straight up without speaking to any user of that solution. That is not design. Your design process has to be human centered. So if this is all you can do as a product designer, you need to brush up on the rest of it as well. So even if your company is just saying, oh, start designing and all that, or we don't have any budget or any time for you to do user research or anything like that, you need to find a way to work it out because it helps you to get better products, it helps you to get insights you wouldn't have gotten. Yeah. And you are not equal to your user, even if you're going to use that solution yourself, because your own perspective might be different from everybody else. So try to speak to people, even if all you do is speak to them while you're on the train, when you're in the bus, on your way home, to your neighbors and things like that. Make sure you speak to users or potential users of that solution before you start designing things. So yeah, and then testing and validation. Before now, when people work within a waterfall approach, as it's been called, which is not even applicable to product management, it's more applicable to projects, but not products. Uh, People just leave the whole testing until after they've delivered the solution. Then they start doing a user acceptance testing or something. And now a lot of things have to go back and rework again. No, but you have to test even from the point of your design. And you saw that from the design thinking framework. So you test, you prototype, you test. So, and your prototype can be a paper prototype. You can use paper, just sketch what your solution is going to look like and try to discuss with somebody. So when testing might look as if you are doing another user research, so to say. But the difference is that the user research, you are not showing them anything. You're just getting information about them. But now you have something that you're presenting them, that you're interacting with, and you're getting their feedback on a particular prototype of a solution, which could just be a paper, which could be something you designed online within a few hours and all that. But it's important to and you can test at different stage of your prototyping journey as well too, because even though prototyping is called the prototype is what is predominantly used for the motion, visual, moving elements of interactive design that you have. But even your wireframes and your mockups are still prototypes as well. So more like lo-fi prototypes, which is low fidelity, and the visual, interactive motion one and all that is a high fidelity prototype. But create some form of prototype, test it, get feedback to fine tune your work. Don't wait until the end before you start wondering, is this the right product? Okay, and there are different categories of users, of course, that you can do different levels of testing with also. So then the post-launch, by the time your product is launched, and as a matter of fact, I struggled a bit to add this to it because in an agile world today where everything changes continuously, we can't just really say post-launch, so to say, because you need to move quickly from start to finish. One of the agile methodologies is called Scrum. So we'll be having in the meeting tomorrow with the guys in the internship program, we'll be having a class bringing someone about to talk to us about the Scrum methodology because it's going to inform and influence how we do our work. Yeah, so have delivered training on Agile. I'm an Agile certified trainer myself and all that, but I want to make sure I'm not doing everything myself to bring in different people to deliver those trainings. So, the post-launch bit, why I said that is because there would always be something to launch. So there is not really like a state of post-launch, so to say, because there was always something in the pipeline. We are launching this. When you work in the Scrum methodology I was trying to explain earlier, you have like maybe 1 week or 2 weeks or maximum of 4 weeks sprints, which means every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, you are delivering something into your solution. Something is going live or something is likely to go live, so to say. So there's always something. It's not as if you've now got to this stage. Oh, now we're in post-launch. Now you keep having more stuff to launch. But I guess why I still captured this is because some of those things are things you can. There are some things that you can't really start doing until at least you have something that has gone live that users could use. Your website, your mobile app, even though you are still updating it every week or so, but something has gone live. That's when you can now get to start observing user behavior. You can't be doing all those tracking, some of those metrics that we're talking about during the growth marketing class until something is live. So the solution has to be live before you can do some of those interactions. And that means you keep getting feedback from how this is being used and all that. And then you incorporate that either to change something, to take away something, because you can deliver a feature sometime and you realize that weeks and months into it, nobody is really using that particular feature. Then you need to try to get feedback. Why are they not using it? Maybe based on your sitemap, based on your information architecture, that thing is hidden. People don't really know how to get there. Then you probably want to bring it, find a way to rearrange that and redesign that and make it more visible. Or maybe it's not going to add any value because no matter how much information or analysis you've done, you can still get things wrong. So it's always, that's why as a designer mindset is always having that beginner mindset that I don't know it, I'm just trying to learn, I'm just trying to learn, I'm just trying to learn. So moving on, I'm going to talk a bit about some I'm going to talk a bit about some tools and things like that, and techniques and tools. However, I'm just going to brush through this because I need to stop in a few minutes so I can take questions and make it a bit more interactive before we go. Whereas the next part of this is going to focus a bit more around the design side of product design. So how do you design these? What do you think about? That's the class where you can ask questions around what tool do you use to create this? You can ask questions around the psychology of even colors, for instance. Why use this color for this solution and things like that. So that's the class where we talk a bit more in depth around some of all those things. So this class is to give us that foundation and talk about some of the things that we don't even think when we are thinking about a product design, all the things you need to do before you even start designing the solution. So this is just to tell us to remember that everything is about being agile, which I've explained a lot, that it's a continuous process, guys. It's not just something we've done, we've finished, we've moved on to this, you keep evolving. So some techniques, I was thinking, oh, should I call this deliverables? But the problem with deliverables sometimes that people think they are just something you fill and submit and it's done. Yeah, but when you think about it as a tool, as a technique that you use in your work, at every point in time when it's required, you pull out that technique and you use it again. You pull out that tool and you use it again or something. So this postcard from the future is one thing you can use in writing your product vision, because sometimes we'll think, what exactly should our product vision say? So the postcard from the future is just saying, because a postcard, you can only capture not too much of information on it. So concerning this problem you're trying to solve, concerning this opportunity we're trying to get into, let's say into the future, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, how many long we think it's going to take us to arrive there. Give ourselves a vision and say, at that point, this will be happening already. So I love the example that came with this one, which is talking about the fact that, so you see, this is to the Environment Agency, and they say that floods have been doing great things, adding nutrients to fields. It's amazing to think floods used to be seen as destructive, but are now being seen as a bonus. So what this kind of postcard is addressing now is that these guys are probably trying to rethink that, can we convert floods from being negative? Can we harness some value from floods? So this postcard from the future is telling them that now they've been able to achieve whatever that solution they have in mind is. As you can see, it's not specific. It's not talking about a technology. It's just telling them about what they must have achieved. So whatever solution, whatever product you're going to create, it's about trying to make sure that you harness value from flood. That's explaining their why there. Yeah. So that's one way to capture your product vision. And at the point of capturing your product vision, it's important to also to like have some form of brief information around your product strategy, not like a whole full too much documentation, but some information that provides some level of guidance to launch this. Yeah. And the one popular one is called the V2 MOM. This was something that I think Salesforce, when it was started, it's just like a one pager. So it's not so, many times some of you think strategy, I think it's just like a one pager thing. But guys, this one pager is not just written within 5 minutes. Yeah. It's like a workshop, discuss with different people and all that, get clarity. Some of these things, you would only put some, so to say, tentative information on it before you start doing your user research. The user research would come back to confirm if you need to change some things there and all that, and your market research as well too, because you might be thinking of this and then you realize that there are 5 other products doing that excellently already. You don't want to, you want to think as you want to have a blue ocean approach to delivering your solution, which means you're not trying to compete with something. You want to bring an extra value that others are not currently offering to whatever your own product is. So by doing your market research, you might come back and maybe redefine some of all this. But the V2 MOM just talks about your vision, the values, and the methods. So how are you going to go about realizing this vision? You're going to develop these products or offer this similar kind of service, something like that. What are the methods they're going to go about this? Then the obstacles. What are the things probably in the way today that you need to keep in mind? And the measures. How are you going to measure that you have succeeded? What is your most important metric measure of success as a business. If you don't have that clearly, then you don't even know what you're trying to solve. It's not even clear. If you don't know what is the most important thing you're trying to measure, say, oh no, we'll talk about KPIs later. No, this is not about talking granular level of KPIs for different teams or something. As an organization, what is the thing that is going to show us that you are succeeding? An e-commerce company, for instance, their metrics, for instance, their own metrics might be that at the point where the percentage of online sales is equal to the percentage of real physical store retail. That could be something that they are working towards that's going to measure. So every year, for you to check if you're making progress, is going to be what is the percentage of online shopping compared to physical retail this year? Yeah. You'd be shocked sometimes to realize that I saw this report, and even I myself was shocked that in the US in last year, 2019, the percentage of retail that happened online was just 5%. Just 5% of all the retail that happened online. So I'm like, what? And to imagine that as big as gigantic as Amazon is, they only have a percentage of that 5%. I think they have about 65 or so percent of that 5%. So you can see that the growth for a company like that is still massive. I know that with what has happened in this year, 2020, with the lockdown and all that, that number would have jumped up seriously. Because personally, there is this online supermarket called Ocado. When the first in the UK, when the first lockdown happened around March and so, I tried to let me even get to use this solution for the first time to do my grocery shopping online. And the guys are like, they are not taking new customers right now. Like that's how much overflowed it was during that period. So I can imagine that that would have beat everyone's expectation in terms of percentage. I might still be surprised that despite the lockdown, it's still only about 10% or so that are the online shopping that still happens. So let me come back. It's find what the exact measures that you are looking for as your business. So I'm trying to solve something for fresh graduates. What's your most important metric? The percentage of people that use your solution and get jobs. So you're driving towards that. Like, okay, how many jobs have been created by interacting with your product or by interacting with your solution this year? So jobs is your own most important metric. Somebody else might be, oh, it's not about jobs. Our own most important metric is how many of them has gone on to do their masters. So you see now that it's not about getting on to granular level, but a high level measure that you can use to check your business. So it doesn't have to be just one. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4 things, but it has to be very few. Three is like the sweet spot really for your major measures as a most important metrics as a business. So now another thing here about techniques is your personas. You only create personas after your user research, because personas is defined as a fictional character. Some people think all you just have to do is sit down and draw up information and just let their imagination run wild to draw a persona. No, that is wrong. If you just draw a persona from your own imagination, it has to be based on real information that you've captured from people. But what makes it fictional is that this is not just one person. So it's a bit of different insight that you've picked from different interactions. So you're not able to form and say, because there was somebody who has this experience, somebody who has this experience. So a number of people have this similar experience. So I'm trying to talk about something that is a similar thing among those people and see it as one person. So and that's why it has to be fictional. It doesn't have to be one. It doesn't have to be a real person. This one even says, okay, yeah, the name is there because I want to say it's also important to call out the name. The name can be fictional, but sometimes it helps you to connect better. So and when you have a design team, when you've created personas, their personas are sometimes hanging on the wall. So while you are doing all your solution, you're always reading the personas and thinking these are the people I'm designing for. So you don't get lost. Yeah. You don't get lost thinking of something else. You have to make sure. So at every point in time, you make sure that this solution works well for this person. And why is personas important in your solution delivery? So let's say you're an e-commerce store and it's part of your delivery solution to people and things like that. By drawing a persona and realizing that a good number of the people using your product or who are likely to use your product and all that, they work Monday to Friday, they come back late. That can inform you that even though your solution is promising next day delivery, that can inform you that one of the things that needs to go into your information is to give people option to pick their preferred delivery date as weekends, because that's when they will be at home. Or that would inform you to say people can pick a specific time for their delivery to say, and that means you also want to probably consider maybe delivering late at night or early in the morning. Or that means you need to think about the fact that if this guy is always in the office, maybe we need to allow him to capture two different addresses or even multiple addresses. So sometimes he can pick if he wants to deliver it to the office or deliver it to his home, things like that. So by having those kind of information about your users, it influences the decisions that you make here and there about how that product is going to look like. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay, so I move on. One other technique is the value proposition canvas. The value proposition canvas, you've had your user research, you've spoken to people, you now need to be able to be clear on things like customer jobs, which is like jobs to be done. What job is your product going to do for your customers? Or what jobs is your customer looking to employ your product for? There's a concept called jobs to be done. You can Google it to read a bit about it. It's like, why am I employing this product? Like, why am I buying this product? Because, and that story talks about, there's this book by uh, Clayton Christensen, who is late, I think died sometime this year. He's written a number of books that went on to be bestsellers and becomes like textbook in the business world. So it's somebody worth Googling if you've not heard about him before. Clayton Christensen, his most recent work before he passed was Prosperity Paradox. He's written things around disruptive innovation and things like that. So there was an example in this book where we was talking about these jobs to be done about people buying milkshake. And while those guys were thinking, how to make more people buy our milkshake, like make to grow our sales, let's make it a little bit bigger, let's change the flavor and things like that. But when they decided to do a user research and speak to people, they realized that why people are most of the people buying their milkshake are buying it because now they are proudly positioned on the roadside. So most of the people buying it are people who are driving to work in the morning and they need something that while they are driving, they can hold with the other hand and just keep them busy while they are driving. So that person is not so carried away about. So imagine without having the clarity of why that person is buying that milkshake from that particular shop, they could have made it bigger. And then if it becomes too big that the hand cannot grab it, those guys are probably not going to buy from you again. You think you've done something good for them, but it turns out to be negative for you. That's why it's important to get clearly why will people employ your product. Someone said I should elaborate on persona. Okay, so persona is you're trying to capture some very essential information. If you Google persona and get some templates, there are different types of information you can capture about different people, different kind of templates you can use for your persona. And but it's just you have this on a visual one. It has to be you capturing persona. It has to be like one slide, like a one-page thing like this. You don't say you're doing persona and you've done 5 pages for one persona. No. And for your product, you can have more than one persona. So each persona is representing a user group. Is representing a user group. So maybe depending on your solution, you are if you are focused on graduates, for instance, you might have maybe I don't know, maybe one addressing technical graduates. So maybe roles that are technical, like engineering and things like that. You might have something that is addressing another type of graduates that are like maybe business related and maybe something that's focused on social sciences. I mean, you can't have something for all the different courses existing for graduates. So you need to have a way to group them, so to say. And your own way of grouping personas might be their life stage. So maybe personas of young graduates and older graduates or things like that. So something that just captures the different user group that you have. And you can only understand the different user groups that you have based on your user research, based on your interaction with people. You realize that some people fit into this bucket. So some people fit into this bucket. So you create your personas is like having something that's now having one person representing all that group. So that name does not have to be the person's real name. In fact, it shouldn't be really. And information doesn't have to be the person's exact information word for word. Because it's representing the user group, so you need to extract things that are common across that user group. So like we have here, for instance, this persona just capture major things around. So maybe one quote that explains the person's life, and then their daily routine captures the goals and aspiration and captures the likes and dislikes. This persona is not necessarily telling you what products this person wants to use. It's just telling you about the person. You get? So this now has a statement capture that says, I love serving people in whatever way I can. My job doesn't end at work. I also volunteer after work. That's just that statement, one statement has helped you, giving you a clear idea of this person's life. So this is giving you some insight about this kind of person for the solution you want to deliver for them. So for someone like this, for instance, if this is your persona as part of your user group, it might inform you that while developing your e-commerce solution, you probably want to integrate some kind of social good element that says donate this to charity. Maybe every time you buy, and Amazon has this thing they created, it's called Amazon Smile. But the funny thing around it is that I don't know it was deliberately done that way. That I believe so. That uh, if you want them to donate a percentage of everything you buy from you buy from them to charity, you have to actually go to smile.amazon.com or .co.uk or depending on your country to shop. Then that way you select a particular charity, they donate a percentage to it. So by saying this kind of thing from this person, it gives you information that, oh, incorporating things like that will be an added advantage to your solution. They don't necessarily need to open their mouth to tell you exactly, but you can extract that from them and think it's going to be useful elements into what you've developed. But if you're not developing and nobody's using it after a while, and you see it's just costing you, then you might take it out. So these are just some of the things. You can see the daily routine that this person cooks, this person work, socialize after work, this person like to work, volunteer and things like that. So it gives you some clues as well too to say, okay, if this person cooks, okay, maybe giving them a voucher as an advantage to eat out or something might not be well appreciated. Maybe what they would appreciate more is voucher for their grocery shopping or something like that. So that's the essence of having your persona. It gives you insight about your users. It helps you think about your users. It knows what will be relevant to fit into their life and what is not relevant to fit into their lives. So, yep. Okay, so value. Some of these things that we're talking about, these things become clearer when you use them. And my mantra, the mantra we work with in Crestrat is learn by doing. And that's why we're not just making this a training program. That's why we have some people in the internship. You learn all these things, they get to work on it on a real solution. Take this, go and create personas. Look at all the information you've gathered from the user research, extract insight from it. And like I said, there are different templates that you can use for your user personas, but you need to understand what are you developing, which particular templates would give you more insight into your kind of people, so to say. So your value proposition canvas, I mean, you can take a whole class on this on its own. So like I keep saying that most of these classes give you a lot of information that you can now pick some of this, try to read up more about them on your own as well too. So the value proposition canvas focused on what the customer is looking to get from a product, what are the pains that your customers are experiencing, and what are the gains are they looking to achieve. So this circle is focused on your customer. Then the square here is focused on your product. So at this point, you're just capturing to say this is the product that you're trying to offer, maybe one or two products and services. And then what are the things in your product that is creating the gains? And what are the things in your product that is relieving the pains? Then they need to match it. These things that is relieving the pains, does it address the pains of your customers? Those things creating gains, does it match with the gains that your customers are looking to achieve? So the essence of using all these templates is to avoid writing too many words and too many documentation that the real insights get missing in the midst of all of this. That the real insights get missing in all of this. So, yeah. So that's it. So that addresses that. So then the product roadmap. The product roadmap is telling us where we're going. Yeah, with our product. So it's high level. It's not detailed. We've gotten some insights. We've gotten some ideas about what this product is going to look like. Then at this point, we can say Q1 2021, we should have delivered this particular part of our solution. Q2 would have delivered this. So it's very high level. It's not like a timeline or time box or kind of thing like that. It's very high level that you can come back and rework and flesh out and things like that. So by just doing a roadmap, it helps you to focus on what is immediate today. And you're not trying to design for the entire experience. You're trying to focus your design on what are we looking to achieve in Q1. Then we move on to the next quarter and things like that. So also storyboarding. Storyboarding is a technique you can use to gather information about your users as well too. So the interesting thing about the storyboarding is that it helps you to capture the scenarios of your users in their life, like how they get to your product and even outside your product. So if you want to create a storyboard for a user of Uber, for instance, you can capture things like wake up in the morning, pray, take a shower, things like that, and then finish dressing, start taking breakfast. Then while on the breakfast table, order the Uber. Then by the time they finish the breakfast, they expect their Uber to be outside waiting. They get into the cab, and while during the call as well too, some of them probably start making calls and start going through their emails on their mobile devices and things like that. And then they come down from the cab, they rate the driver, they get into work, and that's then they do their work for the day. At the end of work that day, while packing up their bags and things like that, they bring out their phone again, order Uber to pick them home. While going home, they want to stop and shop for dinner, then go. So by doing things like this, it gives you some fresh other insights into how your products work. For instance, you might realize that, oh, you think a number of people would order their Uber during their breakfast. So it gives you the time expectation of when they expect, by the time they finish their breakfast, they want the Uber to be out there waiting for them. Or maybe when you realize that by the time you start tracking your data and you realize that maybe some people, they finish their breakfast and they are waiting, the Uber is not yet here, things like that. It will now inform decisions like, okay, can we include something like the moment the person wakes up, they can schedule the Uber and say, I want Uber in the next 1 hour at XYZ time. So they go take their bath and everything. They know the Uber is right there out there waiting for them. So by doing things like that, it gives you those more insight about your people as well. It's a way of some of the information you've gathered during your user research of presenting it visually, because not everyone who can sit down and read tens and twenties and 50 or so many pages of all the information you've had. This is extracting it out visually that people can really interact and relate with. Another thing there, for instance, is when you capture your storyboard that when the person is coming from work, they're likely to stop by and do some shopping for food before going home. It also gives you that design that instead of the person taking one Uber and canceling the ride and ordering another one from the grocery store to the house, you can actually create a feature for waiting. And that would also work. So this is the essence of creating things like this with your storyboard. So you can see that design is not just about we've created a UI and all those things. Right? There's a lot of things that you can create. And like we said from the beginning, sometimes you have some people specialized in all these different elements. Most of the things we've looked at so far seems to look around the area of user experience type of thing. But the product roadmap is something that is more related to the product designer. Then you have user stories, you have job stories. User stories is a way of now capturing. Now you've gotten some insight about your users. You've gotten some high-level framework from your product roadmap, for instance. So now you need to dig deep into exact what they need to capture, what your solution needs to capture. So the user stories is like capturing your product requirements from the user's perspective. And as I always captured in this framework, in this sentence that says, as a, so if you have different user group, for instance, so you mentioned what's your user group. Yeah, what is very common people just say as a user, I want to be able to blah, blah, blah. But I believe that it's essential to capture your user group in your user stories because it helps you know exactly who is using what. Then you can use as a user for a user story that probably that everybody wants. I mean, as a user, I want to be able to pay with PayPal so that I don't have to enter my credit card all the time and I need to check out. So almost every user needs this. So but if you start looking at things like maybe you start having some extra features for some particular type of users and things like that, so then you can capture that one based on the user category as well too. So the importance of this is that in one sentence, you've already captured who needs your product, you've already captured what they want, what they want, and you've also captured why they want it. Who, what, why. You've captured that together within your user stories. So these are things you get from interacting with people. These are things you are able to write up as well too. Is your way of and this is like we said, you know, when we're looking at all the things that product design can touch, we mentioned business analysis as well. So this is one area where the business analysts work extensively. But in some situation, depending on the size of your team, you might get involved in writing this as a product designer as well too, or you can just get in, you just get involved in working with the business analysts while they are writing it because it's a cross-functional thing, guys. And what it means is that everybody collaborates. So the product designer is not just crossing his leg and waiting for somebody to say these are all the user stories. Everybody chips in. Everybody thinks about it. Everybody looks at it. And that's why documentation within a product team today is not about I've written it on Microsoft Word. I would email the next update to you tomorrow. No. That's why documentation today is happening with collaborative tools. You have Jira Confluence. You have wiki on Azure DevOps, you have Notion and the rest, where you can actually capture your notes in real time and everybody can be following it and they can be asking questions or placing comments without necessarily waiting for version 2, version 3, and final version. No, final, no, serious final, nothing like that. Everything is captured in real time on the cloud, and you can collaborate, you can track changes and things like that. So job stories as well, very similar to user stories, but the concept with around job stories is saying that you, by capturing, instead of just capturing the person using it, capturing the situation where the person is using that product helps you to get some more clarity. So you, by the time you capture the situation that when I want to go to work, I want to be able to schedule my Uber so it can arrive on time. You realize that that gives a different meaning from as an employee, I want to be able to order an Uber so that I can get to work on time. It captures, it gives a bit more insight around it because when you realize that this person, the situation is that it's going to work. So you know that time is of the essence, a convenient environment for the person to be in the same mind. You don't want to get into the Uber and come out and be stressed before you get to work already. So all those things matters. So it gives you more insight as well too in your design and all that. But however, user stories is still something that is still much more predominantly common beyond job stories. And in some situations, you can combine the use of both in writing your product's requirements. Then you've done all these capturing requirements and all these things. You want to start doing some form of visualization, which is where some people are familiar with that the product designer gets involved in. You start doing things like your site map. So your site map is trying to, this is like a work where if you have specialists within your team, this is an area where you have like the information architects kind of like working around things like this, which is like, how does everything connect? So you don't want to, so service one, service two, you don't want too much information at the primary menu. You want to be able to group them into some form of category and have like subs that they can get to. You don't want to move service two under contact, or you don't want to move products two under home. So things like that, how they can navigate through and all that. So, and of course, this is not like a document you just draw once and say this is final, because you evolve over time. After a while, you may realize that you've now had 20 services and you can't just put everything under here. You probably now want to group them and say, let's group them under 2, 3 different categories at the primary level or things like that. So these are one of the deliverables, so to say, that we also use. And then you have wireframes, mock-ups, prototypes that we are familiar with as well. So, okay, I PDF to this. I should have, so this, in the right presentation, I should have been presenting this directly. I used the Canva to design this template. So when presenting on Canva, you would have seen this. What makes prototype a prototype is that it's now interactive. You can click through things like that. So whereas your mockups is a visual representation with colors, whereas your wireframes is just lines and boxes telling you this is where something will be here, this is where something will be, without necessarily telling you what and what yet. So you don't really have the text yet, you don't really have the colors, you don't really, but it just shows you how things should be positioned. Yeah, is seen more or less like a backbone, more or less like a skeletal representation. And you can do this by just drawing it with pen and paper. Yeah, and there are tools to also create this like balsamic. And then you have mock-ups where, sometimes this is where the designers start flexing their muscles. And some people say, I want to be a product designer, and all they just focused on is being able to do this. It's beyond just this. Yeah? Any question at this point? I want to check out something before. Any question? If you don't have any question, at least give a feedback. Just let me know that you're listening.
Okay, I'm listening. Chidebere.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Shidiberi.
Okay.
Who else is there? Okay, so I wanted to share the. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
What can you see? What can you see on my screen now?
I can see the wireframes, the mockup, and the prototype.
Okay. All right. There with me shortly. Okay. So yeah, so painfully I couldn't show the prototypes normally as it's supposed to be. So it's more visual representation of this. So yeah, so then let's quickly look at the tools as we wrap up the conversation today. So in terms of tools, there are different tools you could use in your design effort. So you have the documentation tools, the diagramming tools, and the design tools. So in terms of documentation, these are some of the tools you can use today in capturing your notes, which are visual interactive. And like I also mentioned earlier as well, so you have like the Azure DevOps Wiki, you have like the Jira Confluence as well too that are used in capturing notes such that everybody can see it at the same time and interact with it. Then you have the diagramming tools where you have the flow map, Miro, Creately. These ones are able to help you do things like mind mapping, things like the site maps, and the rest like that. Is that kind of like diagramming that you do? So in terms of design, this is level where we're now talking about your wireframes, your mockups, and your what's it called again? Your prototypes. So these are different tools that address a number of this. So Figma is one that is catching on very quickly now because it's online, it's real time, everybody is logged in, is working with you, you can collaborate together at the same time. Webflow is another one as well too that and I was speaking with a developer one time who says that, hey, you don't use Webflow and say you're doing design, but I mean, there are designers who believe that, yeah, using Webflow is actually even very, very helpful in doing design because you can do everything in one place. And from the designs that you've created, instead of the developers now looking at your design and writing the code, they can actually extract code from your design and tweak it if they want to. And then you have tools like Balsamic, which is used in the wireframing, Proto.io online. You can use some of this. It's a web application that you can use Adobe XD, InVision, Photoshop as well to some of all those tools being used around interaction, the motion design, animation, and things like that. So this is, like I said earlier, the next class will be focusing more around the design side of things. So you'll be able to ask questions around some of all these things. What are the things that goes into getting your design ready? So now you've done all the thinking and all that. How do you now get the design together to become real? Okay, so we move on. Yep, so at this point, it's need to ask questions. If there are no questions at all, this recording is available on YouTube. You can go back and play it again. But what I definitely really advise is that go figure this out yourself. Like, don't just write down the notes or take the theory and say, oh, yeah, I've captured some things here. No, take it beyond the theory, work with this, pick an actual solution. And let me also give the advice that if you're looking to build a career path around this, it's not just about, yeah, I've learned all this and I'm going to look for a job. When it comes to roles that are design related, you are always expected to submit a portfolio to show that this is what you've done so far. And your portfolio does not have to be a real project. It's better if it's a real project, of course, but it doesn't always have to be a real project that you deliver for a client. You can create, think about a solution you would want to work on yourself and do everything around it. User research, user analysis, market research, everything, and document your process, how you went through everything, following through the design thinking approach. We did all this, and document everything. So your wireframes, your prototypes, and put everything together. You can do 2 or 3 examples like that, put them together on a slide. You have narratives, so not just screenshots of designs and say this is your prototype. That's not a prototype that tells us that I'm a designer. That's a prototype that just tells us that, oh, you can use InDesign, or you can use Photoshop, or you can use Figma. Your prototype gives us a story of how you started the design process from the beginning to the very end. And even how you conducted things like usability testing in your test phase as well, too. So yeah, go ahead, do some of this, and using some of all these tools. I mean, tool like Webflow, for instance, something you can go online and create a project. If you don't host it, you don't pay them, and you get all those things recorded, put them together in a slide. You can even create a website and show that this is your what was it called? This is your, what was I saying again? Okay, the word is not coming back to me now.
So I think there's a question on
Portfolio.
the chat box.
You see, this portfolio is what I was trying to remember since, guys. So where you can say, okay, yeah, I'm trying to pull out the chat window now. Okay, how can one scale up from product designer to product? Product design is quite broad. I almost got confused at some point. Yeah, I mean, that's it's quite broad. However, the way to be able to win at this is not try to be excellent at everything from the get-go. You might need to just focus. For instance, if you already know how to use some of all those tools that I've mentioned, you might just focus on those and get more clarity around how to use it. And that could be your expertise. And then you just learn peripheral of all those things. And if you already have that, you have that excellence of being a UX researcher, that you can move from being a UX researcher to being a product designer. All you just need to do is know about those other things as well. So if you're going to be working with a team where there will be a team of expertise, will be handling everything, fine. They can hire you as a product designer, focus on a particular side of it. Like I keep saying, depending on the team. Yeah, but the side of it that you cannot really dodge is actually getting to do the design. Really, you need to be able to draw your wireframes, you need to be able to draw your prototypes and things like that. So, and yeah, many of those things are things that if you dedicate some good time to it, you can learn them very well because they're not very abstract like coding, for instance. But it has a lot. I mean, you can learn very quickly, but it takes a while to master because the only way to master any skill is to keep using it, using it. You keep getting better at it. And that's why you don't need to wait until you get a job. If you learn how to use some of all those things, create something yourself as well. So sometimes even look for a real solution existing out there, create it and send it to them, especially if it's a non-profit organization. They will even be happy to embrace it if you to volunteer for things like that. Oh, I've looked at your website, it's not very good. I've created some of all these things. I've spoken to some people, I've done all these, I've done this mock-ups and this prototypes. I think you can improve this website this way. And they can be appreciative of it. And boom, you've done a real project. It goes into your portfolio. So yeah, you have to keep learning. And the truth about it is that there is no role, there is no job role in today's world that will be relevant years from now that is not complex. There will be so many elements that makes up your work. You want to get into finance? It's not just about running the accounting report. A lot of things goes into it. Yeah, the budgeting you have to do for the year, the budgeting you have to do for each product, the financial forecast you have to do, the processing this payment, the reports here, and a lot of technical things, components. And the reason why it probably sounds a bit overwhelming to you guys is that these are sessions that is supposed to take like days, for instance. I will just try to deliver in a few hours because it's just introductory, give you a lot of things and you can go out and research more detail for yourself. So it looks like too much to take in within 2 hours. But if I was taking this over 2 days, for instance, we can stop in between. And in fact, we would even have a project that we would all be working on together during the training. And they'd be like, okay, yeah, so before coming tomorrow, make sure you speak to 5 people and all that and come back and you come with all the things you've gathered, your sticky notes, and if this training was even live, I mean, like in a real classroom, it probably would even be easy to do some of all those things. You write on your sticky notes, put everything together, would practically use everything that we are teaching. And that way it will look less complex and easier to digest for you. So another question is, how can you scale from being a product designer to being a product manager? Now, the truth is, you don't necessarily even need to start from being a product designer if your real goal is product management. You can become a product. So because the three elements of products is around design, develop, and deliver being around marketing, you can become a product manager by being good at one of those three. Yeah, you can become a product manager by being good at one of those three. And some people can even jump on being a product manager by just being excellent in managing people and things like that. But it won't be very effective because you need to be able to understand what those people are talking about. And if you've not worked in that environment before, it might be a very steep learning curve. So what is more common sometimes is that product managers are expected to probably be experienced software engineers. Um, because they believe that that's like the component, that's the end, that's what we are delivering, that's the core of the whole thing. So if you know how to do it, it will be easier to think everything end to end, being an excellent product manager. And in some cases, um, and in some cases, uh, a designer who is good at design and all that as well too, as long as you can now demonstrate the leadership skills, communication interactions, and things like that, being able to facilitate, being able to interact with senior executives and things like that, you can move on from design role to product management. So in short, my response is that the connection between being the very good designer to being the product manager is just understanding the soft skills of management side of things, and not just that as well too, because there are also other elements around finance and things like that. So anyway, if you are a product designer and you have the goal to be a product manager, your goal is to make sure that you work closely with every other person within the product team. Don't just focus solely on just design. As a matter of fact, design in today's world, you have to collaborate anyway. But go beyond just hearing about what they are doing to sometimes sitting with them. Yeah. There is or spending your evenings as well to learn extra some of all those things. What are all the other things around the product marketing? What are one programming skill that I can also pick up here and there? Learn those different areas. So I said it in the last at the end of the last class, the more you learn, the more you are able to earn. So a product manager is that guy who is able to do can fit into all. So for you, if you can even learn design, be excellent at it. Do software engineering, be excellent at it. Do what's it called again? Um, the marketing side of it, be excellent at it. I mean, that makes you a very fantastic product manager because you know what everybody is saying in the product team when you are discussing and collaborating with them. So to increase your chances, it's about knowing a little about every other thing beyond just the design side of it. So that's why companies like Google, for instance, they have programs for an associate program manager where they get fresh graduates or master's degree graduates and the rest, get them into the program for like a year, and that year is pretty much a learning experience. They just throw you in, you're working with a product manager, you are interacting with everybody, and you're learning everything that they are doing. So you don't necessarily have to be able to do some of those things yourself, but you just need to be able to know what it entails, so that when you're speaking, you are speaking the right language, using the right terminology with everybody on your team. But the most important thing, if there is one most important thing for a product manager, is being able to make that product succeed. And making the product succeed, I mean, at the end of the day, comes back to money sometimes. Like, how are we going to finance the project? Where are we going to get the money from? How are we going to get our returns? So, I mean, you, like I said at the beginning, the product manager is more or less like a CEO for that particular product. You're thinking of everything, even the people working in your team, the skills you need, the product roadmap, how you keep scaling, how you keep growing. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of things you're thinking about every now and then. So it's very important to be able to brush through, design, develop, and deliver. And you can also volunteer. That also helps as well too. Find places where maybe it's a small company, and I have a friend like that who is doing a program in product design, and but he's interested in the course actually is called Human Computer Interaction, which was the old name really. And so, but he's not looking to go into just product design. He's looking to go into being a product manager himself. So um, while he has done internships in product design, he's found opportunity to volunteer as a product manager with the company. He's grabbed it. So that way he's getting involved in all those things because the best way to learn anything is to do it. There's no other question. This is Dare Oduale.
Hi, Dari.
Yes.
I have a question, please. I got bounced off a couple of moments during the class. I really want to laud your efforts. I must really say that you're an institution of knowledge, and then we must really just learn and soak it in. Yeah. With respect to the squad and the tribe method you talked about that Spotify was pushing, I wanted to know if you could actually share more of that with the product design team.
Okay. Yeah. I'll share. There's this article I've seen about it that was very explanatory around it. I'll look for that article and share a link to it. Yeah. So I want to say Spotify is pushing. Spotify just did it. It worked for them, and a number of people started adopting it. And some people are even calling it an agile methodology now. But I mean, it's just something that Spotify did and works for them. In terms of agile methodologies, what are methodologies out there that teams work with? The most popular being Scrum. Then you have Kanban, and then you have Scaled Agile Framework, Large Scale Scrum, and what's the other one again? Scrum at Scale, and the rest. So yeah, I'll share a link to the Spotify anyway, in short. There was something I wanted to say. Yes. So if you're looking to like learn a bit more around this and you want to know where can I find information, some of those sites, some of those tools I mentioned earlier, you can Google to. Some of them have like good content. I was looking at Figma the other day. They have a very good learning content. Like even if you don't know anything about design, you just want to start. They have like this well structured, and it's like text-based content that you just read through, and it introduces you level by level to the point of now using the tool as well to yeah. So, and some of these, sometimes there are some people who are on YouTube and they have very good content on it. I'll just tell you, hey, how to use this, yeah, InDesign, InVision, XD, and the rest. You can find a 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour video to use one of those tools as well too. And then we have sites like that I love so much. I even subscribe on it, and they have very good content there. It's called interactiondesign.org, interaction-design.org, and they have just subscribe for a month. Sorry, you can do a month or a year. It's better for a year. It's cheaper that way, and you can have access to all their courses on the platform, and it's very good. And also learn design thinking. It's the foundation of it, and try to apply this extensively. IBM has a very good design thinking course on their website that you can take. It's called Enterprise Design Thinking, and they have levels. And some of these contents are freely available as well too. And in terms of actually designing and how to think about placing boxes and lines and making sure color matches and things like that, there's this concept that Google is championing called material design. So they have content on it on the site called material.io, where you can get to, and they have very lovely content that just takes you through some of all the things you need to think about when designing, how interaction design, placing things, and different things like that that you need to learn. So I've mentioned interaction design. I've mentioned IBM's enterprise design thinking course. I've mentioned what's it called now? What's the one I just mentioned now? I've mentioned content on Figma. I've mentioned YouTube, where you can Google and find some robust content on one of this. You can watch 3 hours on just one tool, or 4 hours or something. And like I keep saying, that the best way to learn a thing is to use it, is to do it. So if you want to learn some of all those tools, go and get it. If you need to pay for it, if you have the money, pay for it. If you can't, if it's the one that is free, use it. Uh, Use a trial, get on it, try to create a project, try to do something. And if you want to start from just learning the actual designing mock-ups and prototypes, for instance, what you probably just need to do is look for an existing design and just try to imitate it. At least that way you don't get yourself locked up into that box of, oh, I don't know what's supposed to be here and I don't know what's supposed to be here now. If you just try to imitate an existing design, at least that way, by the end of imitating an existing design successfully, what you've done is that you've found your way around the tool. So what you now need to brush up now is, how do you make your own decision of what needs to go where? So you're not just copying and pasting design. And I also mentioned the site like Behance, where you can go. Behance is Behance, where you can go and see what other people has as design out there. And there's a site that somebody shared with me a while ago. It's called Awards. I think triple W, AWWWARDS. And they have like, I think like, they keep saying, oh, this is the best designed site of the week or things like that. So you can go to a place like that as well to see things that are actually excellent design and try to like imitate them and see what they are doing and all that. So, and community is one that you cannot underrate. So any career path you're trying to get to, always try to look for where is the community of people doing this thing. Sometimes some of those communities are available in some of these tools. Some of those communities are available on LinkedIn sometimes. And some of all those communities have their own different type of places. They have like meetup groups. So you can download apps like Meetup. Thank God with the lockdown this year, a lot of all the meetups happening everywhere in the world is not online. So you can download the Meetup app and look for if there's any meetup group for designers or product designers and things like that. And it can be a product design in any country, Australia, US, anywhere. And if they are doing virtual sessions, you can join in and collaborate and learn from people as well. So these are some of the ways to learn some of all these things. Google more about what you've seen today. Try to work on an actual project. Join a community, interact, learn from them. Have somebody who mentors you that is actually doing some of all these things. And if you do all this, even the sky cannot be your limit. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a fun time going through this session with you all today. And I look forward to the next one, even being much more exciting as well. And dig into some of all those materials I've shared with you. And feel free to reach out to me with questions. Those guys in the internship program know they can contact. We have interaction on Slack. Those who are not in the internship program, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me via email. Ask me questions. If I'm not the best person to help you in that, I can connect you to somebody that can be of help to you. Yeah. The goal is not just to get you to attend a 2-hour session and say goodbye. Is to make sure that we get the best of it and probably even have a lifetime relationship from this. So enjoy the rest of your evening. And the next class will be next week, Tuesday. Same time. Bye.